Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier. Trust the week's going well. Years whiz by, and next thing we'll know will be the end of the year, no doubt. I'm participating in an event today with Standard Chartered. It's the Kenya Economic Outlook. I'm the moderator, and do follow the live stream from 2 p.m. That link is on Rich Wrap-Ups at the top of the page. Hashtag SCB Market Outlook, Kenya Economic Outlook. I had a very nice lunch with Razia Khan, who's the chief economist, and she took me for a spin around Africa and the Middle East. She's now responsible for the Middle East as well, and afforded me some deep insights, and I look forward to what she's going to say today as well. You will know that Mind Speakers on Saturday, our guest is Erik Solheim, who's the Executive Director of UNEP, currently in Davos and flying back that very morning. Erik's biography is on Rich Wrap-Up. Sander, who's at Saharan and is co-hosting this event with me and will speak at the event, said she's going to speak about the unseen threat to business, which I think will be very interesting as well. As you all know by now, the inspiration for Mind Speak came from a visit I made to Konya when I entered the Mevlana's mausoleum. And as I entered, this is about 10 years ago when we used to have direct flights from Nairobi to Istanbul, I read this. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving, it doesn't matter. Ours is not a caravan of despair. Come, even if you have broken your vows 1,000 times. Come, yet again, come, come. There are very few religious sites I've visited which have made me feel so welcome with those kind of words. And it really was an intoxicating experience. It made me want to create a forum where people could come and they could engage, and I like to think Mind Speak has been that. So Saturday 27th, that's this Saturday, we serve breakfast from 9:30, we start at 10. And Erik is telling me that he's keen to talk about the entrepreneurial opportunity around this environmental situation. I think it will be well worth coming to, and I hope to see you there. Macro thoughts, even when Tom Keene is in Davos, the single best chart must go on. The chart is of the Dow Jones, and the extraordinary, practically straight line increase that we've seen pre-Trump and post-Trump. A teenage Hugh Masekela jumping for joy Sophia Town with the trumpet he received from Louis Armstrong, shot by Alf Kubalo. It's an iconic photograph. I hope he rests in peace. He said many things. He was a deep thinker. I'm a forward-looking person and live in the moment to build for the future, he said. It's a legendary South African trumpeter, composer and singer, died at the age of 78. All my experiences, he said, removed geography from my world. And he really was a remarkable African. The street photographer explores the loneliness of contemporary and urban life. I found it a powerful photograph. Norman Mailer, it's not a good idea to try and put your wife in a novel. Not your latest wife, anyway. The moment one becomes aware of the crowd, performs for the crowd, it is spectacle, Jean Cocteau. Another on-the-road photograph, this time from Finch Hatton's in Savo. Actually, I think it's in the Chilu Hills. Political reflections, Justin Trudeau tells Davos audience their approach won't cut it anymore. He hit out at aggressive capitalism and told business leaders in Davos that their approach won't cut it anymore. We're working very hard to ensure our neighbour to the south recognises how good NAFTA is, he said at a question and answer session after his speech, referring to the North American Free Trade Agreement. If you're anxious, imagine how the folks who aren't in this room are feeling, he told his audience of corporate leaders and financiers. For them, technology is a benefit for their personal lives, but also a threat to their jobs. The unrest we see around the world is palpable and it isn't going away. The only way we'll get there is by listening to our workers and our citizens. We have to take the lead, he added. We cannot neglect our responsibility to the people who matter most, the people who are not here in Davos and never will be. He also sought to highlight the link between gender equality, a cause he has promoted, and economic growth. In Canada, we have given more options for parental leave and invested billions in child care. Helping those families has been a key driver of Canada's recent stellar economic growth. I must say, I like Justin Trudeau a great deal. M.K. Badrakumar in the Asia Times, writing about Turkey re-enters Syrian endgame with smart power. The UN Security Council meeting on Tuesday regarding Turkey's military operations in Syria turned out to be like the dog that didn't bark in the night of the Sherlock Holmes short story. There was no bark, no statement by the Security Council condemning Turkey. However, these are early days and the big powers are assessing Turkey's intentions and what might be in the changing picture for them. So far, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has played a masterful game. If the Turkish operations in Afrin succeed and Syrian government forces take control of Idlib, Kurdish plans, tacitly supported by Washington, to create a contiguous homeland across northern Syria with access to the Mediterranean become a pipe dream. This brings Russia, Turkey and Iran on the same page. Turkey's non-negotiable demand will be that the Pentagon must conclusively end any sort of alliance or quasi-alliance with Syrian Kurds. The Turkish operations in Syria give Erdogan greater leverage to extract concessions from the Trump administration, since Turkey is maneuvering into a position where it can render meaningless and untenable the Pentagon's plans to keep an indefinite military presence in northern Syria. Meanwhile, Turkey will avoid any showdown with US forces in Syria. Turkey allows the US to use its Incirlik base in northern Syria, even as Turkish jets take off from the same base to pound the US Kurdish allies. The US has no option but to remain mindful of Turkey's importance as a NATO member country as a new Cold War with Russia and China revs up. And I think Badrakumar is correct. Effectively, the US desire to create this sort of Kurdish enclave has been triangulated by Erdogan. In this, we see more Russian S-400 strategic air defense systems arriving in Syria ahead of expected expansion of bases. But in fact, this has not deterred Israel. The question is, will it and when? Infographic, Saudi Arabia announces results of anti-corruption investigation. It's a very big discord, isn't it? Which was what I was referring to in my piece on the 13th of November when I was talking about the capture of a 32-year-old wannabe king. Americans cheer their economy, their president not so much. This is a chart from Bloomberg. Stupidest damn thing I've ever seen. Sellout Schumer under fire for shutdown deal. He's now saying that there is no deal on the immigration and the wall. Vice President Pence is seen here visiting the Western Wall in Jerusalem. Jerusalem obviously remains a flashpoint. International markets, after a year of chest-thumping, President Trump has finally delivered the type of trade blow his political base has been craving. Trump slapped tariffs on imported solar panels and washing machines on Monday. His first major move to level a global playing field, he says, is tilted against American companies. The key is now whether the shift from protectionist rhetoric to hard action will disrupt the broadest global recovery since the world was pulling out of the financial crisis. Let's move on to the currency markets, where we've seen some very dynamic moves. The euro is now at 123.16. Dollar index is below 90 at 89.91. Japanese yen is strengthened below 110. Swiss franc 0.9550. The pound popped over 140, 140.24. The Australian dollar last trading at 0.8012. India rupee 63.665. South Korean won 1069.09. Brazilian real 323.71. Egyptian pound 17.721. And the rand ever closer to my target of 12 at 12.03. The dollar has fallen to its lowest level since December 2014, now at 89.91. You will recall I had a target since the beginning of the year of 88. Here is another chart from David Inglis, 89.91 last. The yen rose past 110 against the dollar to its strongest level since September and is now at 109.98. The pound, which closed Friday trading at 138, having visited levels below 120 in the aftermath of the Brexit vote, is now within sniffing distance of levels before that vote, sterling back above 140 for the first time since the Brexit referendum. Euro dollar 123.17. This looks very, very buoyant. Ahead of Draghi tomorrow, we could find ourselves at 124. Bitcoin, and I wrote this on the 2nd of January, the structure of Bitcoin is, however, one that lends it to being short squeezed. And being short squeezed is not a pleasant sensation, let me assure you. And this was my caveat when I was saying I wanted to be short Bitcoin. And you saw that yesterday we dropped below 10,000. We popped above 11,000, and we're now at 10,647. As I said, I'm bearish, I'm not bullish, but the structure of it means that it can be short squeezed very easily. 8th of January, I wrote about the crypto, avocado, millennial economy. 27th of November, when I said I was off, I was sidelined, and I quoted Hunter S. Thompson, life should not be a journey to the grave with the intention of arriving safely in a pretty and well-preserved body, but rather to skid in broadside in a cloud of smoke, thoroughly used up, totally worn out, and loudly proclaiming, "Wow, what a ride." And I also was quoting T.S. Eliot, the hollow men, between the idea and the reality, between the motion and the act falls the shadow, for thine is the kingdom. The millennials, who I believe are just as likely to be European, American, or African, with their avocado eating and cryptocurrency trading ways. Virtual currencies have bounced back from past sell-offs, but this has been a big one. Jose Cuervo investors may be too giddy over the Bacardi Patron deal. This was this 5.1 billion buyout of a tequila maker. That caught people's attention. Netflix, overall, this was a home run quarter for Netflix and shouldn't put any lingering worries to rest around subscriber growth, international ramp, and the negative possible effects from the subscription price increase. Netflix's market cap has surged past that of Goldman Sachs. That's the stalwart. Commodity markets, gold, let's have a look where that is. 1340.65. That's been on a storming run. You remember it ticked 1241 sometime last year, practically rallied in a straight line. West Texas oil steady near the highest since December 2014. We're at 64.42. Brent crude, about which I called for a $70 target on the 13th of November, is trading just above 69. Emerging markets, Venezuela's annual inflation rate for today, i.e. yesterday, is 5,987%. Get your head around that. Let's move on to Africa. A bitter rivalry between Arab states is spilling into Africa, says The Economist. The rivalry between Saudi Arabia and the UAE on one side and the Gulf state of Qatar on the other is spilling poison into the Horn of Africa. Embittering animosities between half a dozen countries in the region. Several of them have seized an opportunity to benefit from instability in the Arabian Peninsula by offering bases. But if Arab conflicts spread, countries in the Horn could be dragged into the fray. Broadly speaking, the regional imbroglio pits two camps of Muslims. One is a vigorously Islamist lot, including Qatar and Turkey, which have been friendly towards the Muslim Brotherhood and Islamist movements spanning many countries and seek better relations with Iran. The other is an alliance led by Saudi Arabia, the UAE and Egypt, whose governments all loathe the brothers and proclaim themselves as moderate Sunnis, particularly hostile to the Shia version of Islam promoted by Iran. Peripheral countries are being affected too. Egypt has deployed troops in Eritrea near Ethiopia's border with Sudan. Near Eritrea's border with Sudan, this followed a bout of bad blood in which Egypt's government accused Sudan of boosting the Brotherhood, which ruled Egypt for a year from 2012 until overthrown by General Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Merry-go-round of island swapping, port lending is taking place. Do take a look at this whole story in The Economist, but it really does not look as if the trajectory is in the right direction. Congo steps up bloody, deadly crackdown after more protests against Kabila. Clergy among hundreds detained as Catholic Church leads calls for President to step down. Kabila does not have any intention to leave power. His strategy is to spread chaos across the country and then delay elections because he'll claim there is too much violence, said Felix Tshisekedi. Congo becoming like a prison under Kabila, says the combative cardinal and head of the Catholic Church. And I conclude by saying taking on the church, which is very powerful in DR Congo, might well prove the straw that breaks the camel's Kabila's back. IMF Managing Director meets Angola's President João Lourenço. And on the 2nd of January, I said I like what I'm seeing in Angola. I'm keen on being long Angolan risk. And I'll say the devil is in the detail of the execution because I knew they were going to devalue the currency. Interestingly, when I met with Razia, she said that she expected Angola to reach out to the IMF, and she was talking about how much more transparent things were looking, and she too was as positive as I was. It would be a pitch like no other. Zimbabwe's eyeing the bond market, maybe not just yet. But somebody said they have a laundry list ahead of them. But the market environment couldn't be any better for this year. The EU says it's ready to support Zimbabwe's re-engagement with foreign lenders. Did you meet them in the breakfast room or the massage room? Pravin Gordon asks Eskom CFO Singh if he met any of the Guptas or Gupta associates when they were all staying in the same hotel in Dubai. Things have now run out of control. Zuma cannot even fight a rearguard action. It's like a pincer, isn't it? Lagarde says she and Ramaphosa have agreed on the need for bold and timely reforms in South Africa to tackle structural challenges and to reduce inequality. I asked him on the 18th of December, will it be 1994 all over again? We can all remember the moment when Nelson Mandela came out of prison blinking in the sunlight and assumed leadership. Ramaphosa, I said, could well be the ignition for returning South Africa back to that incredible moment full of promise. I said then global investors will surely buy the rand by the bucket load, and we could see a further meaningful rally in the order of 10% towards 12. We're about to go through 12 now. South African all shares closed at a record high. It's up 3.31% year to date. Dollar rand, we're just around 12. We break that, we're going to 11, and then I think 10. Nigerian all share is up 16.07% so far this year. The Ghana Stock Exchange up 12.91% so far this year. Coming to Kenya, you can't make this up. Instead of a Raila swearing in, there'll be a voluntary circumcision of street boys in Uhuru Park. 3 charts that show why Kenya's NPC may now start cutting rates. They left rates unchanged for an 8th straight meeting, but signal that there may be scope to loosen policy. While the Monetary Policy Committee left the rate at 10% in line with the forecasts of all 9 economists in the Bloomberg survey, Patrick Jerome said in an email statement Monday there was some room for accommodative monetary policy in the near term. These charts show why the central bank will start cutting rates as soon as March. Price growth in East Africa's biggest economy slowed to 4.5% in December, the weakest advance since May 2013. NPC noted that inflation expectations are well anchored with the government target range of 2.5% to 7.5%. GDP expanded at the slowest pace since 2013 in the third quarter as the government imposed cap on commercial lending rates. The drought and disputed elections weighed on growth in the world's largest exporter of black tea. Fitch said Kenya's economic growth could recover to 5.5% from an estimated 5% in 2017. It'll be sub 5 in 2017. Central bank last cut the rate in 2016. Looser policy will help to support the nascent recovery in private sector growth. Slow credit growth, largely the result of a law capping commercial lending rates, has been a key drag on economic growth in recent quarters. However, until we see some kind of remission of that rate cap, it's very difficult to transmit monetary policy through the system. Safaricom firmed 0.85% to close at 29.50, regained an all-time closing high. It's up 10.28% in January. EABL firmed 1.229% yesterday to close at 247, ahead of its earnings release on Friday. Total will acquire shares in 3 Kenyan oil blocks from AP Moller Maersk, the office of Kenya's President Kenyatta said in a statement on Tuesday. Nakumatt Supermarkets goes into administration. It's dead. I think they should pronounce it as such. Nairobi all shares up 5.39% this year, closed at a record. NSE 20 is up 0.89%. Remember today to clock into the Standard Chartered live feed, and then on Saturday I hope to see you at Night Speak. Once again, thank you kindly for stopping by.